Were there any major shifts in the directions during development? And if there were, what did you guys have to face?
Yeah, definitely. There were a lot of shifts in development. I think once we understood what this vision was and what we needed to do to move it more towards this feel, there were a few things that we kind of needed to change under the hood. One of the big ones was it was a single player experience initially, and we had a much bigger story in terms of a plot and things like that, and varying characters. And while we still wanted to keep the lore and make sure that the game is still set in a world that feels real, we didn't want to make things feel scripted, right? And again, trying to move more into that kind of old school, let you role play it how you want. And we didn't want to shoehorn you into a linear style of an experience. And so really played into making the narrative feel just as non-linear as the gameplay. And so, we'll look to other ways to tell you that story, whether that be through the website, or maybe you might find scripts or pages as you're playing to collect them. So we're looking at other ways to really tell that story, and not really through cutscenes and things like that. And so that was one of the bigger changes, is to the narrative that we made. And then, of course, I mentioned single player to multiplayer. That was a huge kind of change for us, from moving from something that was a bit more MMO in scale in terms of the way that the world was designed, to something that now feels, and we really liked the open world nature of what we were doing initially. But when we had a look at games like Battle Royale experiences like PUBG, and a lot of people will say Fortnite, I don't really like to reference it because the tone is different. It is more of a serious kind of thing. And so rather than having this big open world that we dwindle the numbers, we give you 36 players in a tournament, multiple matches, multiple rounds, and you need to win and progress through the rounds until you make it to the final round of the tournament and potentially win some money. So, we did a lot of work with how could we still take the essence of the open world and how could we distill it down into something that was more bite-sized. So that change from single player to multiplayer meant that we had to look at features and mechanics in this different way. And that leads to like the combat. A lot of combat changes. It's multiplayer. You got to think about network and the lag that can be caused from sending over physics or ragdoll physics over a network. And so a lot of just work went into making sure that the back end felt solid enough that we could start to move across a lot of the single player stuff to a networked environment. And we didn't want to just go, here's a crap load of mechanics from single player, let's just throw it all over the network, because that's when you get a lot of mess. So we're trying to make sure we go through layer by layer, and let's bring in this feature, let's put in blocking. Is there lag on that? Yes, there is. Let's remove that lag. Right now we know what it actually feels like. Let's now tune that. Is there too much defense stat on it? Let's reduce it because it's too powerful. Like this like back and forward thing over a network, that needs to be smooth first, right? So you need to eliminate the lag so that you can go back and forward and adjust numbers to that level. And so these were a lot of big changes that we had to make fundamentally at a base level so that we could set up a rapid iterative process moving forward with the game. Our intention is always to get feedback as soon as we can, get this to people, get feedback immediately, and just make the game better based on that feedback.
That's really exciting. I had no idea that Dark Times started off as a single player concept. Coming at the point of when I came here has already considered multiplayer. And so that excites me as a gamer. I like to play with other people. So I'm really glad to hear that you guys made the shift from more like a single player to multiplayer, because now you just said we're going to have 36 people in a round and we're fighting against each other to see who's the last man standing in order to get rewards. And that's such an exciting